It doesn't really matter how bad an engine may be when you read things on the internet, or how many recalls are out on it, or how many disgruntled owners got rid of them after 20,000 miles. It doesn't matter what engine I tear down every single week. There's always someone that's a huge fan of them. And I think the fans of this engine are those that get paid to service them, because this is a 6.4 Powerstroke. And I'm not saying that all of these will fail. I'm just saying that a lot of them have. In fact, now it seems to be a growing trend to replace the 6.4 Powerstroke with a Cummins engine. There are companies that make parts to do that for an 8 to 10 Super Duty. I think probably an earlier one as well. This is a core Powerstroke out of a 2008 F250 with about 230,000 miles on it, and it's hurt pretty bad. The 6.4 liter Powerstroke came out for the 2008 model year, and it only lasted 3 years in the Ford Super Duty pickups. Of course, these were also offered in buses and medium duty vehicles, but these engines only make 25 horsepower more in the pickup form than their predecessor, the 6 liter. They are built on similar architectures, a lot of parts that are interchangeable, and as such, they suffer a lot of the same issues, although they are quite a lot more complex with an extra turbo and a few other parts that make them a lot of fun to work on. Now, I'm not saying all bad things about them. This makes 350 horsepower, and I think 650-ish foot-pounds of torque, which is a lot. These things run really well when they run well. I think that kind of goes without saying. But Ford really had so many problems with these engines that they ended up developing their own engine, because this is more of an, okay, it's an international engine. And in 2011, they replaced this with the 6.7 liter Powerstroke, which is still produced today. So this engine was replaced for a Cummins engine, which again seems to be a growing trend, and I'll show you what happened to it. So the previous owner of this vehicle, instead of dealing with rusty Ford cab bolts, which are so much fun, they just cut the oil pan. I can't say I blame them whatsoever, but we may not get all of the piston nuggets, or if there are any, because it has an inspection port right there. You can see the block is broken. Excellent crankcase ventilation on this one. And this side is just starting to hatch. Now this is how I received this engine. No turbos. It's missing some parts, but it was really inexpensive. Really inexpensive. Now when these engines are good, when they are good cores, I should say, the core value on them is somewhere around $1,300 if they are rebuildable. This one, not so much. I'm sure many of you veteran viewers of this channel will note that this engine is not on my stand. And it's not because my stand couldn't handle it. It's because a lot of parts have to come out the backside. I don't know why it did that. Regardless, I am still going to try to turn it over, however dangerous it may be, but just to be a little safer. A lot more of me fits in this. That probably looks very bad. Yeah, that's not moving. Let's go the other way. I just think I loosened the bolt. So I don't think this one's going to turn over. The first thing I'd like to do is pull the oil filter. Take a look. Oh, that looks terrible already. I can see silvery stuff. I've just pulled it out. I haven't even looked at it closely. I'm gonna let this gravity drain just like so. While the oil filter is draining, I'm gonna go right for the water pump because it's time. Well, it appears that getting the pulley off broke my microphone for a second, and I had to restart it because that was really loud. So now we're going to unbolt the water pump. Oh, it's falling off. Oh, well, dang. So I've seen this before on 6 liters and 6.4s. Now the water pump itself that actually looks pretty good. And, you know, it's stamped 08, and I just can't imagine a 230,000-mile Ford water pump, but maybe it is. It's got a factory part number on it. I mean, if it's gone this far without failing, it'll probably last forever. But what didn't last forever was this front cover. And I'm really not sure what causes this. Look at this. It's like eroded. I have no idea why that happens. I'm sure someone does, and I'd like you to put it in the comments because this is a strange situation. Although I've seen it before. Next, we're going to just get this crank pulley out of the way. It should be easy, right? I know I already loosened one of these. That one. Will this just come right off? Oh, that was so easy. So normally I would never focus on a crankshaft pin because they're usually not damaged, but this one appears to be slightly damaged. And then when we go to the pulley, there's the coinciding damage. So what happened here? Was somebody in here? And now we're going to continuing on the front timing cover by removing what I believe is the low pressure oil pump. I know this teardown may seem totally backwards because normally we're pulling spark plugs, but we're not doing that. We're pulling the oil pump. And there she is. Look at that unit. Ooh. Let's go clean this up and take a closer look. Let's start with the outer housing. And you can tell there's somewhere, like some debris went through here, but it's not destroyed. And then when you get to the gears, a little bit of wear there, but where it really matters is this. And it looks nice. Same thing on this one. That looks pretty nice. A few scratches, but overall, pretty good. Well, that filter is still draining, so we're going to take the moment and unbolt some of these hoses and lines. Next, we're going to unbolt the left EGR cooler. I don't know what else is holding this thing on. No, we're leaking stuff. Oh, the dipstick tube appears to be in the way. Well, I don't really feel like fighting this right now. Is this bolted in? It sure is bolted in. I think we can do this. Oh no. Will you play nice? There's a hose here. Oh boy, that one's all rotted off. Oh, it's actually rounded off. Who did this? Or did somebody put a 7 on it? Is it a 7? It's going to be. If it wasn't before, it's going to be now. Oh, this is full of... I feel like I need a pan. Oh, I hope that's rainwater and not coolant because that is nasty. Blue, got the bolt out. Maybe I need to rotate it, break the seal. God, I can't imagine doing this in the truck. That would be terrible. I just bent it. I bent it. Didn't mean to do that. We've barely started this teardown and I'm already running into situations. Oh, I think we're getting somewhere. I'm scared to pull too hard and knock this thing over, as I ain't going to be able to catch it. Oh, we're making progress. I'm sure Aaron at Powerstroke Tech Talk is just rolling his eyes right now. He'll get a good chuckle out of this. So close. Looks like somebody put gumbo in there. That's disgusting. So here's the filter, and it really isn't terrible until you look close. There's definitely some small chunks of metal, little glistening pieces, but it's not loaded up. It's not like this whole thing is packed full of bearing material or something else came apart. So I think this just caught the aftermath of this thing winding down. Now we're going to take the fuel filter housing off and start with the lines. Every fitting has a different size. Keeps you on your toes. You know what? That one can just hang out. Now it looks like we have a few 8mm bolts to take out. Oh, that's a 10. All right, that is now loose. We've got a few more 10s and we can pull it off with this line. And fuel filter housing is off. Now I'm just going to continue zipping some bolts out, removing more parts. Let's see. This one's got to come off next. This one is plastic, so I'm sure it'll come off without breaking. Actually did. I'm amazed. All right, we've got some more stuff. Are we ready to pull the intake? Nope, this is in the way. I don't know what holds that on, but I bet you Blue will find out. And there's still one more bolt. Oh no, I'm ruining it. Yep. Can this come off in one piece, guys? I don't think it can. I think we can make it, but I don't know if it's going to come off without bending it. Oh, never say never. Pretty loose feeling. Let's try some stuff. This thing's just leaking everything all over the place. Look at that. It does come off in one piece. All right, now we just have a few bolts on the intake, and I think that'll come up. Is that it? Oh yeah, that's it. Oh, it's full of water. Water doesn't go there. All right, now that we've got the intake off, you can see the meniscus. It's not, you know, they say intake. I guess it's kind of an ambiguous term. This was obviously outside. It's got some rainwater in it. This is going to be one super messy teardown. These fuel lines are in my way. Now they are not in my way. I know what you're saying, the dipstick tube. It's the dipstick tube again. It moves just fine. It's a multi-position tube. Let's see if we can... Well, there's that part of it. Why do these keep fighting me? We're good. The next thing I'd like to remove is this oil filter housing, but I can't do that. At least I don't think I can do that with the pedestal in the way. So we're gonna get the pedestal out, then we can get this off. Is there another bolt in here? I think there is. All right, I blew some air in it, got the junk out. There is a bolt in there. Now, how hard is it for this to come off? Not too bad. And water. All right, now we just have a few 10s. Did that go down the intake port? I hope not. I think that's it. Oh yeah, that's it. The next thing I wanted to pull was this oil pump cover. It's a high pressure oil pump cover, but I can't get that out with the up pipe in the way. And if you look at the up pipe, it should clear. It's all unbolted. That's how I got it. It will not come past this. It's almost like there might be some aftermarket parts on this thing. Can you guys read that? Here, let's see here. ANIHC. No idea. I guess we're going to try to remove this right side exhaust manifold. This looks like a Butler brand part. Next, we'll remove the HPOP cover, which is 8mm bolts. Okay. Oh, you know what? There's another bolt on it. Yep. You don't always have to remove all the bolts, but it helps. So this is the high pressure oil pump. This is what fires the injectors. And it looks like it has a gasket built into the harness here. We're just gonna kind of get that loose. And this is driven off the camshaft gear. No chains in this motor. Looks like we have a few bolts and she'll be out. We're gonna gently crack them loose first. I think that's it. I think there's just 3 of them. Yes. That's pretty heavy. So these are actually worth quite a bit of money, but I have a real dilemma selling one out of an engine that has had an oil-related failure, which we don't know if that's the case yet. But the quality of the oil, or what's in the oil, can make or break these things. And without oil pressure, these engines won't run, which is one of the things I really like about the system. I don't know if it's supposed to be that easy to turn. It feels okay. It's pumping. Worst case, these are still worth money as a core. So now that the valley is cleared, I've got some pig mat soaking up the oil. And let's take a look at what we can see of the cam and lifters. And to say it's bad would be an accurate statement. I'm going to go grab some brake clean so we can kind of clean this up so we can get a better look of what's going on here. So it's not any better. We get a better look at what's going on here. The camshaft has been caught in the crossfire of some connecting rods, I would imagine. And there is a piece of yes jammed up between the cam and the block. So we're going to find some damage inside. Not that we thought this was a good engine. Now we're going to go back to front.
Wait a minute.
What I meant to say is we're going to go back to the front of the engine to get the front cover off. We're going to start zipping some of these bolts out. Nope, we're going to delete the extension. And now I've got these, is that it? I think I got to get these out. I don't know if those actually have to come off. They don't, but they're off. It looks like I don't have any bolts along the bottom, so we can just pop this off. Except for this bolt that's still in it right here. Oh, it's so much easier with the bolts out. And there's the front cover off. Leaking junk all over the place. Now it's time to start tearing the heads off. Let's get this valve cover unbolted. Nope, I forgot. This is international. 12 millimeter. There's a bolt in the front that I missed. Let's take a look. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Yep. Mm-hmm. Oh. Looks great. So the valve train doesn't look too terrible. I don't see any broken bridges. There's no rockers popped off or broken. Injector harness looks okay. I mean, I might have missed something here, but this all looks all right to me. Now it's time to start pulling this apart. I'll get the injection lines. Where is that supposed to go? I guess there's a pressure sensor right here that's missing. I'm just going to loosen these up. We'll get these loose. I know that these come off the injectors. All right, we're going to hang that to the side. All right, now we'll unbolt the fuel rail. Fuel rail's out. Next, we'll unbolt the box of rockers. Yep. Blue, help me out here. There is no place to do that. What I can do is just give it a little tap. Got it. Here's a better look now that the rocker box is removed. All the valve train and injectors all look to be intact. I don't see anything terribly alarming. It's a diesel and it's iron, so it doesn't look nice and clean like a lot of the gasoline engines we tear down. Looks okay so far. Next, we're going to ram the rocker arms off. See, I don't know if I can get this all off in one piece, but we're going to try. Need the push rods behind. Like so. Keeps things nice and orderly. And now we can remove the push rods. Let's start at the front. That looks okay. Those all look pretty decent. The ends are all glossy. I don't see any that have that machined finish like poor lubrication. Next, we're going to remove the injectors. And it's gone. Well, here's what the injectors look like. They don't really have any damage, and they also don't really have any markings to see. The tops are green. What do you think, guys? Have these been replaced? $230K? What are the chances that these are the original ones? Yeah, I don't know. There might be some numbers on them. I'll have to try to decode them at another date. Before I go cracking the head bolts loose, we're going to remove the bridges and keep them in an order. Before we get the big bolts, there's some small bolts up here. Unlike my stand, this cart does not have brakes. So we're going to see how this goes. It may be good. It may be bad. But they're going to come out no matter what. They are tight. I'm sure the head's just not going to fall off. I don't even know if the bolt's going to come out. I think it might be time for a new impact. Yeah, let's do that manually. If that doesn't do it, it should do it. Easy peasy. You can hear the head gasket releasing. Look at those monster bolts. Now the internet says these heads are 75 pounds, which isn't too terrible. Nah, that's not bad. Except for the water that just spilled on my crotch. Well, there's a cylinder head gasket. Will you let go? Well, the head gasket, I don't see any problematic areas. It's an MLS gasket, and usually they breach before they blow. I don't see anything. Very heavy head gasket. Let's take a look at, well, there's some water in this cylinder. The rust isn't too bad, so I don't think it's been sitting too long. This one's got some fuel in it. Ooh, that one's bad. Let's take a peek at the pistons. It's an interesting looking pattern on there. What does that say, diesel guys? I am so not a diesel tech, so I can't really tell you if that's normal or not. Water is abnormal. It's not supposed to be there, but that's because this was out in the rain. That one has some fuel in it. Cylinder walls, pretty scored up. You can see a hint of cross-hatching left. This one, though, see how the machining ridges are gone except for where the valves are? That's because this piston hit the cylinder head. Look at the deep gouges in the bore. This thing crashed into the head hard. And here's the cylinder head. I've heard these are pretty notorious for cracking. In fact, that one might be cracked right between those seats. That's usually what I've read where it happens. And then this is the one that was hit by the piston. You can see the marks on the valves from that happening. Well, it's time for some science, because otherwise I'll forget. That's got a broken rod. Now we're on to the driver's side cylinder head, or the left cylinder head. Let's clean this up a little bit. Okay. Ooh. While we're here, let's get the exhaust manifold unbolted. Oh, it's got a broken stud right here. Is this an LS engine? And then this engine lift bracket. Let's unbolt the left-hand valve cover. What did I do here? Can you tell it's late? I just put that socket on backwards. I'll show a close-up of this once I get the fuel rail out and the rocker box off. But I don't see anything obviously wrong here. Now it's time for the fuel rail. Loosen all the injection lines. Harness off the injectors. Oh, I broke it. Oh no, a used part that shouldn't be reused. What will ever happen?
Now I can unbolt the rail.
And the rail is loose enough. Let's unbolt this. Let's see, does this one come off any easier? Nope. And we're off. See the wizard? Let's take a look at the valve train on this cylinder head. This all looks pretty decent. The injectors are stamped VDO, Siemens VDO. I don't see anything terribly alarming. This all looks okay. Now it's time to remove the rocker arms. Try to do the same thing as the other head. Release the rods of push. See if we can pull this all off. Like so. And now we can remove the push rods. Nothing looks bent. I don't see any impact marks. The ends all look pretty standard, like they should. Now it is time to unbolt the injectors. These injectors all look pretty good. Now, I don't really like selling used injectors out of a diesel engine unless I know it runs well, and I don't know that. Obviously, it has some user-installed inspection ports, so pretty much this full set of 8 injectors will get sold as cores for rebuilding. Let's get the bridges. I said bridges, not britches. They're not the same. And the upper head bolts. And now, the big head bolts. Oh, that's going to be fun. How can I do this without dying? To say I'm going to be tired tonight, well, I'm going to be tired tonight. How can I do this? This is going to be bad, right? It's already bad. That's bad. Real bad. I'm not strong enough to put that back in place either. All right, we're just going to risk through this. It's fine. Don't look at it. If you don't look at it, it's not going to be a problem. It's going to be a problem. Dang it. What am I to do? Here's my solution. Is it going to work? I have no idea. But in life, as long as you solve more problems than you create, you're doing all right. First test. Oh, I think we're good. If I can get the bolt out. Yuck. Let's get the head gasket off. Gotta be careful with these. They'll slice and dice you. Head gasket. Again, I don't think this was the problem. I don't see any actually terrible areas in this. So this side does not have water in it. This all looks okay. There's some scratches, but the vertical scratches on this are pretty minimal. Yeah, there's a pretty good area there. Cross-hatching looks nice, but this one is highly suspect. I think that this may have rotated. Do we have another one of those rotary phone pistons? It's a little bit of rust in that combustion chamber. I don't see anything too terrible. I may end up giving these a quick clean before the end of the video to see if we can see any cracks or damage. I don't know. Maybe it's fine. Science will tell us. It's a very adjustable connecting rod. The next thing I'm going to do is get the lifters out. Let's get the trays unbolted. This is not the tool for this job. Nor is this. But it's doing it. Ooh, that lifter is not happy. Come back here. And then there was one. And the tray's on the other side. Well, all the lifters roll surprisingly well. A couple of them have some damage on the bores. Nothing crazy, like I don't think the lifter bores are actually damaged. I think there's just some debris. The oil is super thick in this engine, and I don't know if that's normal or if it's got a problem, but all of these look pretty good. Nothing has come apart. And I know this is a point of contention with these engines. I've seen them where they eat lifters and cams because it's the same basic lifter that's in a 7.3 and it's pushing on double the valve springs. The next thing I'm going to do is get this thing unstrapped. I'm going to get this picked up and slide a 2x4 underneath the cut part of the oil pan, get this centered on the crate again so that I can remove the flex plate and this rear housing so we can get the cam out. Let's zip this flex plate off. And now we can unbolt this. Let's do a battery change. All right, fresh battery. That did it. That didn't do it. All right, this should do it. Let's get blue and see if we can knock this cover off. Does this come off separate? I can't remember. It's been a minute since we took one of these apart. And we're off. I do know now, or remember now, that I think the cam comes out last because it doesn't clear this. And I think I can take this hub off and there's no side effect of ever taking that off. You can put it back in any position. I'm kidding. There's a set of bolts inside of here. And if you don't put this back on in the exact same spot, I think that it'll vibrate really bad. That's what they say. And by they, I mean you guys. So at this point, I'm left with few options. Option number one is to flip the engine over, take the crate off, or maybe I set it, you know what, that'd probably work. Set it in the crate, and then I can start unbolting some stuff. We can work on getting the crank out, or I can throw the whole thing away because there's probably not a lot of value left in it. What do you guys think? Should cut the video off now? No? Okay, we'll keep going. Well, that's some bad news, guys. It seems like since the previous owner sawed the bottom of the pan off, we're missing some of the parts that would have been loose inside the pan. Just fair warning, I'm just as bummed as you guys are about it. So now we're going to remove the remainder of the oil pan. Well, it's kind of clear what happened here. Now it's really clear. That is not gold. This is not a pan. I mean, it is a pan. That is brass and copper. Well, copper, really. And that's from bearings. Because that's what the crankshaft journals look like. My barbecue pit is cleaner than that. And here's the damage to the upper oil pan. It's got a giant hole knocked in it. We can see there's some bad stuff going on in there. There's a piston. But look at all the bearing debris on the main cap bolts. Now, this doesn't really have main caps. It's a bed plate design. But look at all that. Yuck. Now it's time to remove the upper oil pan. That's probably not the actual name for it. And this is just scrap metal at this point. Next, it's time to unbolt the bed plate. I have no idea how tight these are, but I would wager this may struggle. Or not. All right, I wonder how tough this is going to be. Apparently not tough at all. I think I can throw the bolts away since the block is kind of not good anymore. Oh no, I'm losing them. Ooh, that's not fun. So here's another look at the carnage. Looks like we got an oil squirter making love to the camshaft. That's not good. Yeah. Who knows? It might have launched that wrist pin out of this thing on its own. May not have even been in the oil pan. So I think the next thing we're going to do here is it looks like we have 12 rod cap bolts to get out. And then we can just pluck the lightweight crankshaft, and I'm joking, out of the block. And then we can push 6 rods and pistons. Well, 6 rods, 8 pistons out of the block. I think I'm just going to crack them all loose first, and then I'm going to zip them all out because, nope, we got to start over here. Oh, we already have problems up here. At this point, the crankshaft is free. I might be able to lift that out of there, said the hernia. I'm always up for a good challenge. Lift with the legs. This is safe. That's not too bad. I don't think it's as heavy as a lot of the other diesel cranks I've pulled. All right, now let's see if we can push some rods and pistons out. There's one ring. I was worried these may not come all the way out because they won't come all the way out. Maybe if yeah. Let's just see if we can get the rest of this bank's worth of rods and pistons out. And here comes one of the mangled ones, maybe. Oh yeah, it'll come out. Maybe. Where's the rest of it? On to the other bank. Try to be gentle. And the final remnant. That rod is really stiff. That's not what I meant to say. It's almost out. Oh, the next thing we need to do is see if we can rotate this cam. We can. I need to unbolt this retention plate. There's one 13 millimeter there and one there. There's one. Let's, there's the other. Now the cam should just slide right out. Can't just... Oh, we have some oil squirter interference. If I turn it just like that, these oil squirters So the oil squirter is kind of in the way, as you can see. I'm going to have to slightly modify them a little bit more than the engine already did. Might be able to nah, I'm just going to use blue. Fix that one. I know what you're saying. Eric, you're using a pry bar against the camshaft, you're going to ruin it. I know. I was left with no choice. This one is a little... Maybe we can just... No, we're not going to be able to get that by that. Look at the size of that main journal. I might have to try to unbolt that. That's what we're going to do. I can't believe this isn't going to work. Ah, right in my face. That worked perfectly. Oh, this should just slide right out. I should add that these are kind of on the heavy side for a camshaft. I got to be gentle. I don't want to damage the cam bearings. Let's start with the connecting rod bearings. They don't look great at all. You can definitely tell they're heavily worn. And a lot of times you can attribute mileage to that. But 230,000 miles is not a lot for any of the Powerstrokes. Even a 6-liter, it's not a lot. And of course, they get much worse way into the multi-layer part of the shell, and then these two are just vaporized. And the rods and pistons, they don't look too bad. I don't see any cracks in any of these. I admit I did not wipe these down by any stretch, but then you get to this one. And it's heavily scored. You know what? Let's clean these up a little bit. All right, I wiped these down a little bit. Look how grooved up that is. Now keep in mind, that's the opposite side of the engine. This is from the front of the engine where the rods are intact. It's only on one side of that. And I'm not quite sure what that means because I'm not a diesel guy. I'm sure you guys are more than willing to chime in the comments. Lots of you guys are professionals that watch this channel, and I want your opinion. What does that mean? A lot of times when I see heavy wear on a skirt, it means it was overheated, but I didn't see any other signs, at least while I was tearing this down, that looked like this engine got hot. Some grooves. I don't see any cracks or anything in the pistons. But that's all that's left from that one. There's a whole dang rod missing. And I'm sure it was in the pan or maybe it launched out onto the road. I mean, it didn't really create that large of a hole in the block. And then the bottom of that one is gone. That's pretty cool. I'm sure the wrist pin has since been reinstalled in another 6.4. This one is just crazy. Yeah, bludgeoned. So many dings and dents. I'm amazed this piston held together. It's a little wobbly. That's still incredible. Now the camshaft. This would have been a good cam because I don't see any major damage until it got in a fight with a couple of connecting rods. Really did a number on a couple lobes. You don't lobe to see that. Now let's look at the main bearings. Now I've cleaned a couple of these. I didn't clean them all because, well, you'll see. So this one was actively coming apart. I think it was moments away from spinning. I can't remember the last time I saw a main bearing that looked like this. Can you? And then this one is still on the crank. We'll get to that in a minute. The rear one is probably the best looking bearing in the engine, and it's still bad. And onto the crankshaft. You can see those journals are ugly. The main journals are really bad. Those rod journals don't look bad. That one's pretty grooved up. That one's grooved. This one has still got a bearing on it. They don't look like they've spun, but they are fused, or at least they didn't easily come off. We'll get that off in a minute. And then this, believe it or not, there's still bearing material on there. You can see that layer right there. I'm not going to be able to even try to get that off. There's some deep dents. You got to realize these engines are big. They make lots of power and torque. And when something gets in their way, they don't care, even if it's themselves. And then that journal looks good. We're going to look at the cam bearings because this engine's not going back together. There's some wear down to the copper. I don't know if what these are supposed to look like. They don't look too trashed. But you can see, look at the amount of metal buildup, metal filings on the pickup for the that's for the RPM. I think there's yes, cam sensor, I guess. Yep. And the big carnage, there's the block. There's a squirter I had to remove. Look at how chewed up the bottom of this was. I'm sure this was silent, or the loudest thing this person ever heard. The rest of the bores look pretty decent. The one that had deep grooves was that one. You can see, I don't know if that's debris. It does not look good. And because you'll ask, here is the bed plate. You can tell some parts of the mains have been pretty toasty. And there's an impact mark right there. And that one, a couple impacts on that side. I wonder, can we get these bearings off? Oh, there's one. There's two. It's a thrust bearing. Wow, that is cooked. Absolutely cooked. Look at all that copper. They're not supposed to look like that, just so you guys know. That's bad. It's actually delaminating. That's impressive. The journal also doesn't look great. So I did some resurfacing, and the only damage I can really see is right there. The sad thing is these heads aren't worth anything. New heads are so incredibly cheap that used heads, the machine work needed to get these back into spec, is just not worth it. So these will probably end up in the scrap bin. Clearly, this was an oil-related failure. Whether it was starved of oil, or perhaps it had dirty oil and a piece of debris blocked a passageway, or maybe it was diluted with diesel fuel, I can't really tell you for sure, but there's a couple things that I just can't wrap my mind around with this blown-up engine. Number one is that if this engine was running all the way up to the point where it blew all this stuff apart, and obviously it doesn't do it by itself, the amount of material that came off the bearings must have been astronomical. We have torn down so many smaller engines with less bearings, less bearing surfaces, and when those blow up, when people don't change their oil or run those low, a lot of material finds its way into the oil filter, and when we open the filter up, it's like Sparkle City. In this case, every pleat had 2, 3, maybe 5 pieces in them, which anytime you find metal in an oil filter, that's real bad. You never want to find that. But it wasn't completely loaded up, which the only way that happens, in my opinion, is if it was run low on oil. It doesn't have the method of transporting that metal to the filter. However, if it was run low on oil, the way the fuel system works is it fires the injectors using high pressure oil from the high pressure oil pump, and if it doesn't have low pressure oil, or if it's run low on oil, how does it have high pressure oil to fire the injectors to blow the engine up? I don't understand. I'm not a diesel tech. I'm just a guy that zips bolts out until parts fall off. I don't see these trucks with blown up engines. I just see the blown up engines come back, and I rarely get a story with them. So help me understand how this can blow up so bad. Now, I will say this, all of the 6.4 cores that I've seen They're all really, really bad. I've had some that look really good on the outside and they look really, really bad on the inside, worse than this one did. Sometimes they contain the blast, sometimes the blast goes to the outside. And I'm not holding out on you guys either. That was like 4 or 5 years ago before I did teardowns. Just wanted to set the record straight. But either way, this thing had a bunch of good parts. It has a core high pressure oil pump for rebuild. It has a set of injectors for rebuilding, and it has well, there's some parts to sell off of it. If you want to buy a rod and piston for your desk, or if you need some random stuff for your 6.4 Powerstroke, yeah, I'll sell any of it. Otherwise, most of it's going to end up in the scrap bin. We'll save a few parts from it, the stuff we know we can sell on our website. And speaking of our website, if you'd like to buy anything off of this engine or anything off the engines I've torn down in the past, or off of this 140,000 mile Eddie Bauer V10 Excursion. I don't get these in very often. This one's actually really nice. This is not why we're parting it out. There's more issues. I'm gonna leave our email in the video description. You can also go to Importapart.com and peruse our inventory. I've been uploading our parts cars every single week. I really hope you enjoyed this teardown as always. I love all the comments, all the feedback, and even the criticism. I love it all, and I'll catch you on the next one.